tram is running again in Bristol, just the one, an experimental service along the docks to the SS Great Britain. But it could be the start of a clean and green public transport system to ease the city's terrible traffic problems. The new electric-powered tram, or railbus as it's being called, took the first passengers for a spin earlier today.
All aboard and back to the future. The tram has returned to Bristol, and this time around it's a potential jam buster. In the old days of public transport, horsepower was very much in front, superseded only by the electric tram with overhead lines, until the arrival of the more flexible and personal motor car, and look where that got us. Now the cry is for green, environmentally friendly transport. Its inventors say this zero-emission, energy-efficient carriage fits the bill.
People are obviously longing to have trams, but most trams are the conventional tram is too expensive. This is a low-cost one, but people like the ride. They find it much more pleasant to ride on than a bus, and of course it has the big advantage that it is clean.
Bristol's Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress took a ride today, a stately 10 miles an hour, from the Industrial Museum to the SS Great Britain. Time to relax and enjoy the view.
Having had a ride on it and seeing it does go at a fair little speed, I would have thought there must be tremendous possibilities for a prospect like this, or a project.
In cities like Sheffield, trams are now an integral part of city centre transport. Whether the electric rail bus catches on here remains to be seen, but perhaps this is a start. Simon Whitby, HTV News, Bristol.
Should be just the ticket if it catches on.
Big breakthrough, that is.
Absolutely. Now, this takes me back a few years when I used to play with these. Simple principle: wind them up or push down the flywheel, and hopefully they race across the room.
Hopefully your playmate catches it too. Well, that very same principle has now been applied to the latest mode of public transport to be unveiled in Bristol today. Our business and industry correspondent Malcolm Frith reports live from the city docks.
It's clean and it's environmentally friendly. It's the latest tram here in Bristol, and this week it's been launched here in the city.
It was more than 50 years ago when the last tram was seen on the streets of Bristol. Since then, there have been more than 20 years of talking about bringing them back. Today, the electric tram was back on the tracks, and it was a welcome sight for many people.
Well, I think it's a tremendous idea, and it's great to see the docks railway being used to promote something like this.
I think it's wonderful, ecologically wonderful. I think it's great, no emissions or anything.
Oh yes, very good. I think it's a good idea. I can remember the old tram earlier.
They're very good for the town centres. Hope there's a lot more of them.
It's a 6-month experiment that's being backed by the City Council, keen to reduce traffic congestion and pollution. The government recently revealed that 24,000 people die prematurely from traffic fumes in the UK each year, 6 times as many that die in road accidents. And with traffic predicted to increase more than 38% over the next 15 years in Bristol, the City Council knows it has to find alternative forms of transport.
Funding is a critical question, and we're waiting for the white paper on transport to be released in June, and we understand that there'll be a lot more information in that about how local authorities might be able to access more funding for public transport, and we're working very hard with the government on that, and we're looking for funding for all sorts of different innovative ways of getting people around Bristol and reducing the need for the private car.
But the big question is that if trams like this are introduced into service, will people abandon their cars and use them?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Because this tram here is going to operate from the Industrial Museum right through to the SS Great Britain. And as you see, it's not that large, and yet it's supposed to be environmentally friendly, clean. Well, let's go on and have a look and just see what it looks like. Well, it's quite spacious inside. It can carry around about 32 people and reach a top speed of about 30 miles an hour. And if you want to buy one, they can cost about £100,000. Well, joining me now is the driver, Richard Pearson. Richard, exactly how does it operate? It is electrically driven, but how does it operate?
Well, basically, it starts at one end of the line and you store energy in the flywheel. You run the flywheel up to speed, and you then use the energy stored in that in the flywheel to take you down to the other end where you recharge it, and then you come set off again and go back to the other end.
Now, you're a train driver. Did you have to undergo a special course to become a tram driver?
Yes, we did. The company that built the vehicle sent down their representatives and trained us up and formally examined us and tested us and passed us out.
Now, do you think many people are going to take advantage of this experiment in the city docks?
I really hope so. It's a very good experiment, and I think it could be great.
But is the tram going to actually be introduced, or do you think it's just an experiment? Will it be introduced here in the city?
We really hope so. There are definite plans to try and extend the network and get the city moving.
Richard Pearson, thank you very much indeed. Well, one person who's been taking advantage of rides on the tram is the weatherman Richard Angwin. He will be back later to give the weekend's roundup of weather. Now back to the studio.
Trials. But in the next few weeks, Bristol City Council is due to announce a business plan for a new supertram service between Bradley Stoke and the city centre.
It's very exciting. This particular vehicle is a sort of second cousin, if you like, to those trams which operated in Bristol many years ago. But the other issue, of course, is the rapid transit super tram, which will connect the city centre with the outer areas. And that's important too. We're very close to finalising a deal on a private sector finance.
This smaller tram on trial today could be used in areas such as the docks.
The last tram to run on the streets of Bristol was on the 11th of April 1941, but this one could herald the beginning of a new generation of trams that could be operating on the streets of Bristol within the next 5 years. Malcolm Frith, BBC News West.